Hi, Davi here, and today we have an episode in the Art of Davi YouTube channel, and today we'll be checking out the work of Atay or Ate at Hugh Hua Di Atay. And I will link, by the way, this page or this person, this artist in the description below. Now, if you look at the Twitter page, it's not many. There's not much in there, but I think I'm going to focus way more on the more recent work because there's a lot of consistency with this artist's past or the recent pieces anyway. And yeah, I do like the look of it. It's still in that anime genre realm, but it reminds me of one of the artists I also reviewed before, Yurichev something. I will link that artist too in the description below. And I think he commented in one of that specific art review that I did of his work, and thanks. I'm glad you saw it, and yeah, check out the guy's work too. So yeah, moving to this person, by the way, to address a recent comment, it wasn't meant to be like 1 hour. I do think I do agree that it should be shorter. I should try and find like the most common takeaways or the most key takeaways from say a specific artist, right? I do get that, but things were just happening, and like the pen kind of software I was using to draw over the screen was a bit laggy, and I was just kind of all over the place. And I do try. I really want to keep these types of videos shorter. Number one, it's easier for me technically, but also it's going to be easier for the audience to consume. It's still good. I do like the video, but I do agree that I really want to try and keep it at least like at max 30 minutes because I'm aiming for like 15 minutes, but fuck it, it's we never really know how things are going to end up in the end. Did I say that right? Anyway, so to get that out of the way, I think I'm going to try and seeing things from afar instead of reviewing each piece. We'll try developing a system of analyzing like a specific style, right? So in this case, we do have we'll look at the recent work. Let me just change the brush size because it's a bit tiny. Is this okay? Yeah, I think this is okay. So we'll be looking at the more recent work, and I've noticed that there's usually a focus on some kind of character, and I've noticed they tend to be fighting characters. I'm not sure if this is from a game like Tekken or Street Fighter. I'm not really sure where it's from, but I do know this is like Chun Li. Forgive me for my lack of gaming knowledge, but I do think that most of these are from a specific game because they all look like fighters, like wrestlers, and I believe this is Jun. This is Chun Li, but this is Jun something. She's the chick with the feet. I've seen the commercial or the advertisement for this character, by the way. Super hot. Anyway, I do notice that for these character sketches, there tends to be like a white background, and then after that background, there's like a basic backdrop, backdrop, and you'll see this sometimes in concept art where they just add a bit of something to help the character pop out a bit more, because if it's just a white background, it can be a bit boring. Although I've seen it work if if the character itself is super rendered. Check out the recent art reviews I've done of like these Korean artists. Just go a few videos back, and a lot of their work has that basic white background, and it's because the character itself is already so like filled with detail, with information, that I think adding this backdrop is going to be like, it just adds too much. Now we'll be focusing a bit more on these specific pieces, but just from afar you can tell the rendering is it's cell shaded. It's not like super detailed. And yeah, there's not a lot of like you're not overwhelmed with information. It's very heavy on the shapes, very exaggerated, and I think having this background is the right amount of oomph to help it pop out even more. Now I've noticed, well, I was gonna talk about the line work, but we'll skip that for now. So I think that's just the major thing. It tends to be like fighting characters. Obviously, it's character art based on some kind of game. That's interesting. And I do notice a lot of exaggeration. You'll see, I think the guy's name again is Yuri Chev. I will link this guy in the description below. It's a way of drawing, painting, or sorry, not painting, but maybe painting, but illustrating a character, but exaggerating the forms. It's almost like a caricature, and you'll see this a lot in comics. And I've noticed, by the way, a lot of caricature artists, they tend to be, or animators as well. They tend to be better at human anatomy, and I think it's because they know how to simplify things and not overwhelm themselves from the beginning. I mean, you can always add like the muscle striations and insertions later on, but if you have like a solid base and it works in this kind of basic kind of form, then it's just easier to approach, you know, this kind of complex subject, in this case the human form, right? So that's interesting. Lots of exaggerated shapes, very dynamic shapes, and I've noticed it's very sharp. It's not like gestural, like curvy and such. I mean, yeah, there are curves, but that's not the point. It's very striking, like big freaking poses. Let's say this is the head, arms, the legs, and there's a lot of like it fills up the page, and it's never really, I don't really see full. It tends to cut off somewhere around the legs. I think Chun Li's feet here is a bit cut, or this specific like leg. But yeah, so these are a few things I've noticed in the works of a Thai, a Thai, and yeah, so we'll try and go for or zoom in into each kind of piece, right? And again, we'll be focusing more on like the more recent work, because it is a bit more consistent now, and obviously it's kind of what attracted me to the, oh shit, maybe Madao is another. Let me just write it, Madao. I'm not sure if I reviewed this artist's work, but they also tend to use very like exaggerated, you know, forms and shapes whenever they do their characters. So I will link also this guy or this chick in the description below. Shit. Let me just, oh, the fuck? Okay. Yeah, for the line work, by the way, I think, I don't know, I don't see, it's not a very heavy inked piece. And I think it actually feels a bit sketchy to me. Like sometimes you'll see openings. It's not like meant to be finished in like a typical manga or comic kind of way. Like it's meant to be, it's meant to go hand in hand with some kind of rendering underneath. Now for the background, it does get a bit more gouache, meaning there's less lines involved. It's all about like blobs and shapes, and it feels more like a gouache painting that way. The character itself, there's going to be a bit more definition with the lines, of course, right? And you can tell by the shape, it's very, there's like a triangular element to it. Now maybe that's just the body, but it doesn't feel as smooth. Like it has a more striking pose, and the lines themselves, like there's no wiggly, you know, gestural kind of stuff. It's kind of just sharp, you know. And I think all of that together, along with the pose, it just has a more striking and impactful look. And again, the backdrop rather, it really works well, leaving some white space. It just adds a bit of, yeah, it makes it pop. It makes the character pop out more. And this effect where the backdrop cuts off somewhere, so it feels like this person is almost like going off the page. I think it has an extra, you know, it contributes even more to that pop out effect. And you'll see this a lot in like, if you've ever seen like those 3D like public screens you'll see beside buildings, you know, for advertisements, they have the same technique where it makes it look like the real thing by having this kind of effect where you essentially, this happens but in a more 3D kind of way whenever you see those ads in like, you know, those busy commercial streets or yeah, intersections. Anyway, for the colors, They are colorful, there is color, but they're not as saturated. I think there is some slight desaturation there. Like you're not really being blinded, I would say, when it comes to these sorts of pieces. Now, this guy I think represents, I'm going to assume America because of the stars, maybe. And if you look at the arms, like you can actually see a bit of those initial. Is it the initial pencil sketch? But essentially, it's not an inked thing. It's maybe there was a basic rough sketch beforehand, but this final set pencil sketch is a pencil sketch. You can see some shading here, the back and forth, pencil strokes, typical pencil strokes. Sometimes the openings are like the it's incomplete, meaning the openings are present. It's not like super tight, super closed. I mean, it's correct. It's in the right place, but it's just not finished, And yeah, I've noticed that the lines are fairly tight. Not tight, but thin. So it feels like you're using a very small, like a 0.5 or a 0.3 mechanical pencil. Now for the rendering, there is some blending, or meaning it's not just like a flat, typical cell shading kind of approach. There's a bit of blending where you see a gradation of value. Now the colors, I don't see a wide hue range. Like you don't see the entire rainbow in these sorts of illustrations. Like it's kept simple. Like the jacket is yellow, the pants are blue, right? But within that major, let's say in this case the coat or this jacket or polo shirt, or camo, is it a camo shirt, the camouflage kind of thing? You do see that way more value range, meaning from dark to light, not necessarily color or hue. I do see some under. Is this like a shadow thing, like this slight purple coming from below? Maybe it's a reflective thing from the water. Who knows? But yeah, maybe this guy's the pilot because of the planes. That's kind of what I'm guessing. Maybe this is an actual character from somewhere. Who knows? But you look at how big the guy is typically. So let's look at this wrestler dude. And yeah, even if there is some painting going on in the background, it's a bit more developed, even though it's not tight. Like you can tell it has been worked on. Now in this case, it's blurred, so you can't really see the brush strokes as much. So maybe that help this guy pop out even more. And in a way, it makes sense because this guy is moving, or that's the idea. In a way, you can see like the white stuff, and kind of like in manga or comics where it's supposed to indicate motion, right? And with the feet, you can still see the pencil sketches with the some shading with the muscles here. You can see you can see those back and forth pencil strokes. Even if it doesn't make full sense, even if it's kind of rough, you can compensate via the rendering underneath. And I've noticed so far that there is no paint over. Oh shit, maybe there is. I just can't see it. But in this case, the backdrop is some kind of photo. I'm guessing Tokyo, maybe one of those metropolitan spaces. Now for this piece, I was gonna say that there's no paint overs, but let me just try this. I want to zoom in more. Oh, it's so small. Oh shit! Look at how big it is. I do recommend you check out the actual page because you can zoom in even more. And yeah, I think it's meant to be viewed also up close because like you're missing so many details if you just view it from this point, right? So yeah, there is hardly. I don't think there's a paint over, meaning you paint above. Or you create a layer and you paint above or render above the line sketch or the inked drawing. Like the shadows, the colors, they're all underneath essentially. Or they're maybe in some kind of multiply mode, who knows. But the point is you can see the sketch, the line. Well, it's not really line art, it's more of a pencil sketch, but interesting. That's interesting. So just make sure in the beginning, I guess, to Make sure your line sketch is pretty much set. It's proportionate. It handles, solves all of your design problems, and then from there you can just have fun coloring, and you don't even have to do paint overs because it's kind of the standard, right? You do a line sketch, and then you do a layer beneath it where you do the flats, and then you paint above it, right? You don't have to. You can do it like this guy, because if you zoom out anyway, it's going to look like it's rendered. And I think it also helps when your lines, in this case the pencil sketch, it's a bit thin, right? Not a bit, it is very thin, to the point where you hardly notice it from afar. Just go over the feed of this guy in the media tab, and it looks like it's just a rendered piece, like it's there, like there is no pencil sketch beneath it. So we'll check out June. I forgot her name. Juri, fuck. So hot. The only thing I would change probably is because the feet is not as prominent. I expected more, but maybe that's just my perversion. But anyway, let's zoom in. So the backdrop is there. It's not all the way down because I think you want to be a bit of a graphic designer when you're doing the backdrops, because it's not like you're trying to fill up the whole page as well. You want to make sure that it goes with your the pose of the character, right? And in this case, the leg is kind of foreshortened, especially the lower half. So it's already kind of feeling, when something is foreshortened, it does become way bigger, or it looks bigger anyway. So it's already kind of taking up a big chunk of the screens or the canvas size. So there's no point in trying to accentuate it more. It actually helps to pop it out by having the background as just white, you know, like it's popping out of somewhere. And in this case, it's from, let me just bring out the, yes, my pen. So it's kind of like popping out from here. Let me just draw the arrow properly. Right? I'm trying to make a 3D arrow, right? Because if the backdrop is all the way down, like there's no pop out effect, right? It's already foreshortened, so why add, right? So, that's interesting. Let me just bring it back. And I'm actually kind of averse to shading things this way, where you go this kind of like dashy kind of sketch, like look like this. It's a bit awkward for me. And it doesn't look as good, but it looks good for this guy or for this chick, who knows. So that's interesting. But yeah, don't be afraid to, like, you don't have to, I guess. Like, whenever you see stuff like this, it shows you that there is no one way to do something. You can achieve a fairly almost finished looking thing by leaving the pencil sketch in. And it's not like there's one way for something to look finished. Maybe this is the finished look, you know? And it works anyway, so what's the hang up here? I think we just kind of oftentimes get stuck doing, or we think we have to do things a certain way, especially if it's already been established. Like we feel obligated almost to stick to that set thing. But when it comes to art, you don't have to. You can be your own thing. And I'm looking at the rendering. I do see lots of blending, maybe the airbrush being used, or some kind of blending brush. Basic round brushes, right? And I don't see a lot of texture brushes being used. Maybe some occasional specialty, you know, like textured edged brush. You can see it here in the background with the graphic elements. But for the actual body, I think the rendering is kept simple. I do see lots of gradients, meaning there's a nice like fade. Shit, why is it so big? I think I'm changing the size of my brush, kind of. I'm clicking something I'm not supposed to click because it's so like fat and thick anyway. Shit, now it's so tiny. Okay, this is okay. Yeah, I need to know the shortcut because I'm probably clicking something. So do you see the nice gradient here? Like it goes from dark to light. So maybe you're using maybe a soft brush for that or a gradient tool maybe. What else? Or maybe just maybe it's just a typical like opacity brush thing where you constantly paint over or create a darker effect by just painting over it over something multiple times. Now for the feet, unfortunately, I expected more, but you know, maybe that's just my. I do like the attitude here because I think that's kind of her character. He's kind of a meanie, I guess, but like a crazy chick basically. But definitely the feet should have been there, but you know it's still there. There's some respect to the the character at least, but this is Chun-Li. And again, if you zoom in, if you zoom afar, zoom out, it looks rendered already, like finished. Like there's hardly like you can't even see the lines in this level. Now the backdrop, you can tell it's painted, but they decided to blur it. I'm not sure if that's okay. I mean, it works, but sometimes you know I have my my mixed feelings with blurring things too much because it's kind of sad. You know, you paint something and then you just have to blur it in the end, like you're taking away something. It feels like, but it still works. You know, like you don't even have like even if you do a painting, like you're encouraged to not add details because in the back of your mind, you know, or you're aware that you're going to blur it anyway. So, going back into Chun-Li again with the rough. It's not exactly rough, but it's just not like a. It's not designed to be a really clean piece of line work. It almost looks like it looks like a ballpoint pen sketch. Maybe it's because of the color. There is a bit of color added to the line sketch, but do you see how it's not even that tight? You know, it's not like super. It's just correct. You know, like everything is where it's supposed to be, but it's not like polished in any way. Referring to the line work and even the rendering, like it's there, but it's not Takemi-chan super rendered. You know, and I think both of that works. It works together. You know, that correct, but somewhat not exactly loose line sketch. It's more. It just has to be there. But it's in the right place, and I think that's what matters. Now the face is a bit more clean, it makes sense. You want to make sure that the head. Oh, they did leave in some pencil or marks or dash lines in the hair in the lighter parts. I mean, you can still see it in the darker parts, but obviously because there's hardly any shadow, because it obviously lit right from above, you can see that. That's so interesting. You just leave it in. So I'm guessing the original sketch has some kind of basic shading when it comes to, but it's done with the obviously with the pencil strokes or ballpoint pen strokes, and then after that, you do the underpainting, and then you can work on that even more. But you do leave in some of those initial pencil shadings. I think it's a nice mix. Right? But in this way, you don't have to overwhelm yourself with the rendering after. So if you're doing like the color phase or the grayscale phase, you're not pressured to be as intense because you already have some kind of basic rendering or shading, but it's done with lines. So I guess the key or one of the key features of this artist is mixing some pencil or line shading with some, you know, standard like. Sometimes it feels like cell shaded, sometimes it feels like an actual like painting or rendering where it's more 3D, it's more realistic, right? That's interesting. If you look at the top part, the legs are way more rendered, right? But when you maybe not just the legs, but the areas in light that's being lit, there's hardly anything in there. It's essentially the background canvas. And all that's left is maybe some, you know, the initial drawing or the drawing itself, the final pencil ballpoint pen drawing, and then some. It kind of this sort of thing happens like between light and shadow. There's almost this in between certain light color. It's usually orange or yellow or pink. But that's interesting. It looks very graphical as you focus in on the lighter parts. But in the darker parts in shadow, there you can see the rendering even more. So that's interesting. So it's been 25 minutes, and I think we've tackled the essentials of this. Let me just look at this guy. Oh, America! Damn, he's so buff. Let's zoom in. Oh, in this case, there's a bit more color, kind of like the Jury, or what was it, Jury or Chun-Li? This one, it's a bit more red, right? Or maybe it's because of the skin tone. It's supposed to go with the skin. That's my assumption, because if you look at the vest here, it's more dark blue, I guess, or just plain black. I mean, it kind of makes sense if you leave the line or this pencil drawing kind of black or dark gray. It's kind of, maybe it's a bit too much, you know. And this is very common, by the way. People drawing in like orange or red pencils or converting them into this color because it just works well better. I'm going to assume with the skin tone, where it's a great way for you to for you to use lines, but without having to worry about. But at the same time, it being able to blend with the skin. I guess that's a basic kind of understanding. So some anatomy knowledge here. Look at the muscles, bruv. Right? Fucking jacked. The hair is interesting. And again, not afraid to use the pencil strokes for shading in the beginning. And then even if you do the rendering underneath, there is still some you know, shading. But in this case, in a more painterly kind of way. And it all works together. Now the background, again, I'm going to assume it's some kind of maybe photo, or maybe just painted but blurred out eventually. If you zoom out, can you actually see the lines? Maybe a bit in the skin, but in the clothes, you want to make sure that the line is the color of it anyway is very close to the hue, or even maybe a bit of the value of the surrounding areas, right? Interesting. And again, the brushwork, I think it's just a basic round brush. Even the zipper looks nice. Even though it's so simple, it just, like, you'll know it's a zipper. Like, there's no question, no debate. The folds, standard, but it makes sense. And again, the very exaggerated forms are just, the overwhelming, like, chat energy here. Fucking, Anyway. So yeah, that's it for this art review of Alai, or Athuahua di Atay. Wow, this guy or this chick, this person is younger than me. But just a few years, by the way, so F you. Anyway, check out this person. I will link this artist and other related artists or similar artists in the description below. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.